Thanks, Colorado. Because of you, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear a case that's right up there with Bush versus Gore. What they will decide could determine how we vote in November's presidential election. We get Congressman Jason Crow's thoughts on being an impeachment manager, and both Colorado senators talk with us about their roles. Yeah, both senators talk with us. Some were easier to get than others. Plans to close a private prison in Colorado Springs are still a go. Plans on where the inmates go is going to require some difficult math. Our good news is courtesy of RTD. You heard me right. Good news and RTD. This driver is worth your time. And it's a game of political musical chairs at the Colorado State Capitol. Hey, I'm your political reporter. What'd you expect? Next. He teaches high schoolers government, and next year he'll be able to teach about his own case going to the U.S. Supreme Court. How about that? Michael Baca is Colorado's Faithless elector. He's the one in 2016 who did not cast his Electoral College vote for Hillary Clinton, the one with the most votes in Colorado. Baca was removed for someone who would vote for Clinton. He sued, lost, and then a U.S. appeals court determined he was right, and what Colorado did to him was unconstitutional. All caught up? Now the U.S. Supreme Court will decide if electors are required to vote for who you pick or if they, like Baca, can go rogue. It was done symbolically. Get another candidate enough Electoral College votes to perhaps keep Donald Trump from being president. When Michael Baca chose not to give his Electoral College vote to Hillary Clinton, he was doing it in spite of Trump. Now his decision will impact how all of the United States votes in the next presidential election, because the U.S. Supreme Court will decide if he and essentially any of the 538 electors should be able to vote for whomever they want.
I necessarily don't think that 538 people should be the ones to decide the president. That was just the way, that was the rules of the game in 2016. And so I'm hoping when the court takes this case on, they're going to rule for electors' freedom and that electors can do this. And then that is going to force the legislative branch into action.
He wants to win so that lawmakers will change how we elect the president. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser wants him to lose. He'll likely be the one arguing the case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court in April. Weiser will defend the actions of then Republican Secretary of State Wayne Williams, who removed Baca as an elector and replaced him with an alternate who would vote for Clinton.
And the thought occurred to me, this could be the beginning of a threat to our Electoral College system operating the way we've expected it to operate. And that's something that at the time I was aware of. The fact this has become a federal case that got all the Supreme Court, that was not something on my mind, and now it's my job to defend our law.
By now, some of you have shouted, "What about the national popular vote?" The idea of whichever candidate gets the most votes nationwide would get our Electoral College votes. One thing at a time. First, the Supreme Court will decide if you, the people, vote for president, or if the electors that get picked at party conventions vote for president. If I used the term impeachment manager last week, would you have known what I was talking about? By now, you've heard it used pretty often. First-term Democratic Congressman Jason Crow is one of 7 impeachment managers, the prosecutors of the president's impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate. This morning, Crow toured the CU School of Dental Medicine's Heroes Clinic. I was waiting outside, and he wasn't expecting me. He only had time for one question before walking off, then agreed to meet me at his district office in Aurora, where he told me he was picked for more than just being a lawyer.
I also bring my military background as well. I've been very vocal for months about the extent to which the national security component of this, how the thrust of the abuses of the administration go towards national security, and how grave that is.
Were you asked or told you're going to be an impeachment manager?
No, I was asked. The leadership just doesn't compel people to do certain things, and I think people that know me know that I can't be compelled to do certain things. There's certainly a request.
Did you have any hesitation?
Well, I had to think about it, right? I mean, obviously this came as some surprise to me since I hadn't been lobbying for it. I had to talk with my wife. If there's one thing that people know about me, it's that my wife and my family and I are a team. So I had to make sure that the family was in a good place and that they would be supportive of it before we decided to move forward.
Crow said he's preparing by reviewing documents, intel reports, committee reports, and new information since the impeachment vote. He would not tell me his specific role in the impeachment trial. So you saw on Next last night, I was on the same flight as Republican Senator Cory Gardner coming home from Washington, D.C. We were casual in the airport, and I asked if he could stick around for an interview with me after we landed. He said he couldn't. He had a meeting. My colleague Steve Sager happened to be catching a flight last night, and before he took off, he waited for our plane to land, and we finally got to ask Gardner questions about the impeachment trial.
I take my impartiality duty seriously.
You talk about impartiality. Is it possible for any senator to be impartial in this trial?
Well, it's their constitutional duty and the oath that we all took.
How do you plan to maintain that
Well,
impartiality?
there are people running for president against President Trump in the Senate. So we have a duty to be impartial.
Wait a minute. Do we know a person running for president against Trump in the Senate? Democratic Senator Michael Bennet. Okay, if we're going to ask Gardner about how he can be impartial having fundraised for Trump, how can Bennet be impartial when he wants his job?
I actually don't think it's at all a balance. I have a constitutional responsibility to be an impartial juror. That's what I will be, and it's a great privilege to be able to do that. I'm not going to allow politics to affect that.
So why do those interviews look different? We approached Gardner at the airport because his team consistently denies interviews or just doesn't respond. Bennet, even though he's running for president, sometimes finds time with us. The Senate will take up the impeachment trial next week, and they reconvene Tuesday afternoon. Now to that side door that never seems to close at the state capitol. No, this is not a security issue. It's the unique way nearly 1/4 of our lawmakers got their job, by being appointed by a vacancy committee. The newest winner of musical chairs is Denver Democrat Chris Hansen. He'll move from the House to the Senate to take the seat of Senator Lois Court. She resigned effective yesterday after being diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder. She wasn't going to run for re-election anyway, and Hansen had already announced he was running for her seat. This leaves us all in a bit of political musical chairs. Hansen fills Court's seat, but now someone has to fill Hansen's seat, which will happen by a vacancy committee appointment and not a vote of the people. But wait, there's more. Republican State Representative Susan Beckman's seat is also open as of this morning.
I write this letter to formally tender my resignation from the Colorado House of Representatives as the House District 38 representative, effective immediately upon the acceptance of this letter.
She said she's resigning to accept a position in President Donald Trump's administration. No specifics, though.
In this role, I will continue to serve Colorado, and I'll actually be just down the street.
Her seat will also be filled by a vacancy committee. We're still waiting for the Republican Party to tell us how many people make that decision, but we know it's just about a handful. Okay, that was a lot of politics, and I'm the politics guy saying that. But we understand that there's a limit, so we'll give you a break. For our part in this newscast, we're done with politics. Almost done. This one has a hint of politics, but it's really about closing private prisons. It sounds like a math problem you'd see on a college entrance exam. A private Colorado prison closes in less than 60 days, and nearly 600 inmates need a new home. Only problem is the number of open beds in state prisons isn't even close enough to house everyone. Mark Salinger shows his work behind the math problem.
638 inmates currently call the Cheyenne Mountain Reentry Center home. By March 7th, that number has to be 0.
It's certainly a situation that's highly urgent.
So let's do some math. 98 offenders are expected to be released from the GEO private prison before March 7th. That brings us down to 540 people who still need a bed in a Colorado prison. The Department of Corrections has 373 open beds right now. That leaves 167 inmates with nowhere to go.
167 is what we need, but keeping in mind, no one operates a prison around this country well that's 100% full every single day.
Dean Williams is the director of the Colorado Department of Corrections.
I'll play whatever cards are dealt to us.
Today, he gave state senators and representatives a blunt assessment of what needs to happen.
Cheyenne Mountain's closing down. The alternative for us as a state is CSP2 or really nothing.
CSP2, also known as the Centennial South Prison, is in Canyon City. The $160 million prison was built for solitary confinement, but has sat empty since the state moved away from that. Now it'll cost millions more to reopen it.
The long-term number is in the area of $7 or $8 million ongoing.
DOC has already began retrofitting the facility to house less violent inmates, adding outdoor recreation yards and common areas. Some senators were skeptical.
I have serious concerns with what we're doing with this prison.
We end with another math question. With the Cheyenne Mountain facility closing on March 7th, lawmakers in the Department of Corrections have exactly 50 days to figure out where 167 inmates will sleep. And that 167 number is a best-case scenario number that could fluctuate, of course. If lawmakers do not vote to approve the opening of the Centennial South Prison, Marshall, the director of the Department of Corrections, worries that up to hundreds of inmates could be sleeping on sled beds, which are basically makeshift beds on cell floors.
And at one point they said possibly double bunking. But this isn't about just moving people from this closing private prison to the worst prison in Colorado. It's shuffling.
They're going to make sure that everybody is with inmates that are around the same type of inmate as they are. So it's not like they're just going from one prison directly to the other. They're going to be distributed around the Department of Corrections.
So they're going here, and people here are going there.
Exactly. You following this?
And we don't have it all in place yet.
We don't exactly know just yet. A lot of questions.
First time I've had somebody to talk to.
There we go.
Thanks, Mark.
There we go.
Similar last names. Appreciate it. Overdose deaths in Denver are going up if you look at one specific drug. First, the data from the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment. It shows drug-related deaths are actually down over the last decade. They looked at data from 2008 to 2018 for that stat, but we look closer. There's been an increase in fentanyl-related deaths. The Department of Public Health and Environment says 22% of drug-related deaths in 2019 involved fentanyl. It was just 8% the year before. A Colorado sheriff's office threatens to block people on Facebook, and technically there's no rule against it. And a brief word from Kyle about his recent experience dealing with the City of Denver government employees. Logan County. It's a self-declared Second Amendment sanctuary county. Translation, officials there don't like the red flag law and likely won't enforce it. Then a recent Facebook post from the Logan County Sheriff got me thinking about the First Amendment. You know, the one that mentioned something called free speech. The post that got me thinking was the Sheriff's Warrant Wednesday feature. The sheriff posts a suspect with an active warrant in hopes the community knows anything and gives deputies a call. Except Warrant Wednesday was removed 2 weeks in a row. The sheriff's office is tired of nasty Facebook comments and threatened to block any keyboard warriors moving forward. We checked. The sheriff's office can block people, and this surprised me. The ACLU told us the sheriff's office is not the same as politicians blocking people on social media. Politicians are public figures, so they're not allowed to do that. Normally, Kyle would be sitting here, and I think we've established my jackets are more tame. I got my little glasses clip here. I'm not Kyle. He's out of town, but he still wanted to share something with us. He had to deal with the city of Denver this week, calling 311 and visiting a couple city offices, and he wanted to talk about his experience.
We give elected officials a good amount of grief around here, but we should remember they are greatly outnumbered in government by all of the unelected people who do the work and deal with the public, often dealing with the public's perception of those elected officials. So I accidentally conducted a government customer service audit in the city of Denver this week. Now, I did not set out to talk with 311 operators 3 times in one day or to go and visit 2 separate city offices in person. And dealing with a series of small problems had me feeling frustrated. I would bet that they deal with a lot of frustrated citizens every day. They solved some of my issues. They couldn't help with others. But I'm telling you, to a person, these City of Denver employees across various departments were friendly, they were hardworking, they were polite on every call, on both visits to city offices. So, just wanted to take a moment in this space where we so often give government leaders grief, to take a moment to tell all the rank and file people who keep our communities running, thanks.
High wind warning continues for Denver through 2 a.m. tomorrow. We've had areas of blowing dust east of town and up in the high country. It is whiteout conditions on I-70. Roads are icy, snow-packed, and it is a slow go. Some of the peak gusts today are well over 70 and 80 miles per hour in areas like Levita Pass, west of Boulder, and across Berthoud Pass. The winds coming in out of the northwest on the backside of a system that's moving out quick. How about that high, 55? In January, that's nice if we could just get rid of the wind, and we will. The gradient between the high and low low beginning to ease. The cold air stays to the north, and we are watching this system roll on out of here. It's going to give us a beautiful weekend and maybe a great 3-day weekend if you have that. The snow is going to continue over the northern and central mountains between now and midnight. That's when we'll see the worst of the wind. High wind warning continues again for Denver, the Front Range, and Eastern Plains until early tomorrow morning. But tomorrow is going to be a whole different weather story. It's going to be a much calmer day, a cooler day, but a quieter day, and Mother Nature gracing us with some snow just in time for the upcoming weekend. So tonight, windy, high wind warning out through 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sunshine tomorrow, less wind, mid-40s, and here we go. Mid-50s in January for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Chance for mountain snow Wednesday, and maybe a little snow right here in Denver Wednesday night into Thursday. About a 20 to 30% chance that we'll see a little bit of snow on the ground. I just love these pictures coming in. Colorado has the best clouds. Keep those pictures coming. Marshall, aren't these great?
They look a little wind-blown, so we can do without the wind, but they look good.
So does my hair, by the way.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
A bit of cheer from the G-line. Seriously, I'm not messing with you. Cheer from the G-line. Safe bet that it will make you smile. RTD has had its struggles over the last few months, but you got to give him some credit for hiring Steve. No, not Steger. Steve Waller. He's been a hit on Arvada's G-line for a few months now, but today was his last day. He's switching over to the A-line, and that bums out his loyal riders. So we've sent photojournalist Tom Cole to catch his final rides up north.
Today is actually bittersweet.
The G-line just won't be the same without Steve Waller.
Hey, how you doing?
Or, as his colleagues like to call him,
what my coworkers call me, the big sexy. Oh, yeah.
You can call him that, but ultimately, he is a people person.
My mom would say I don't meet any strangers. I mean, because I'm in a cab just driving by myself. So, shoot, if I get a chance to pick up the mic again since I'm a retired rapper and just talk to people, and if they like it, I love it. Radio check, can you hear me over?
Waller has a following. Riders have taken to social sites commenting how their trips to and from work are a little better thanks to him.
When I walk through the train, because I talk about smiles, I can tell automatically who rides with me.
He's a little sad to go.
I kind of established a bond with the people on the gold line for the past 4 months.
But he did the same thing on the A-line, which is where he's going back to, starting next week.
I'm a Mr. G-line, and keep smiling because you know you look good doing it. That's my thing.
For Next, I'm Tom Cole.
Some of Steve's biggest fans made plans to crash his last route tonight for a giant send-off. Hey, maybe he'll be our operator when Kyle has his party on the A-line. Well, you heard Big Sexy's good news. It's Friday. We want to hear yours, and we'll share it in the feedback next. We end the week on your good news. Robert turned 62 on Monday, 16 months cancer-free for the second time. Congrats, Robert. Deborah, I'm over the flu. And Joe wants to know, coincidence or karma that I was on the same flight as Senator Gardner? What can I say? We were united. See you next time.